The day my husband packed his bags and left me for her, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I simply smiled, and that terrified him more than tears ever could. My name is Claire Donovan. For nearly 10 years, I believed I was living the kind of love story people envy. My husband, Jason, was my college sweetheart, the man who once drove 3 hours in the middle of the night just to bring me soup when I was sick. We built a life together, a cozy home, shared bank accounts, Sunday dinners with friends. On the outside, we looked like the perfect couple. But love has a way of curdling when lies seep in. Jason wasn't just my partner, he was my best friend. At least, that's what I thought. Over time, little cracks began to show. Late nights at the office, business trips that grew longer, phone calls he took outside on the porch. At first, I chalked it up to stress. He was ambitious, always chasing the next promotion. I wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. Then came her. Samantha was new at his firm, a junior associate with sharp cheekbones and a laugh that carried just a little too long. Jason introduced us at a company event. She shook my hand, all warmth and charm, but something about the way her eyes lingered on him made my stomach twist. He brushed it off when I asked, "Don't be paranoid, Claire. She's just a coworker." A month later, he was gone. No warning. No fight. Just a suitcase by the door and words so sharp they sliced me open. "I love her, Claire. She makes me feel alive again. You don't." I thought I'd collapse. My world blurred as he walked out, leaving me with a hollow house and a marriage reduced to ashes. Friends tried to comfort me, whispering that I'd find someone better. But I wasn't looking for someone better. I was looking for justice. Because Jason didn't just leave me for her. He took everything, our savings, our friends, even the plans we had for the future. He left me standing in ruins while he walked hand in hand with the woman he replaced me with. But here's what neither of them understood. I am not the type of woman who stays broken. In those first nights alone, something inside me shifted. While Jason celebrated his shiny new life, I began quietly studying the cracks in it. Their weaknesses. Their secrets. The threads that, if pulled, could unravel everything they thought was secure. I didn't scream. I didn't chase him. I waited. High voltage because sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one who seems the calmest. And if Jason thought leaving me was the end of our story, he was about to learn it was only the beginning. People always say hindsight is 20/20. Looking back, the signs were there long before Jason carried that suitcase out the door. I just didn't want to see them. The first red flag was the phone calls. At dinner, while I was talking about my day, his phone would buzz. He'd glance at the screen, smirk, and excuse himself to the porch. "Work," he'd say, though his voice outside was far too soft, too amused, for conference calls. When I pressed him, he'd sigh, roll his eyes, and say, "Claire, you don't understand the pressure I'm under." It was easier to drop it than to fight. The second was money. We had always shared finances. I managed the bills, he handled the investments. It worked, until suddenly it didn't. Transfers appeared from our joint account labeled as miscellaneous expenses, amounts large enough to sting. When I asked about them, he brushed me off. Business dinners, client gifts. Don't worry about it. But I did worry. Late at night, staring at the dwindling balance in our account, I couldn't shake the fear that the life we had built was slipping away without me. Then there was favoritism. At gatherings with friends, he praised Samantha in ways he hadn't praised me in years. "She's brilliant. She's got fresh ideas. She's the reason my team is winning new clients." His voice would light up when he said her name, but when someone asked about me, he'd shrug, laugh, and say, "Claire keeps the house running." Like my entire existence boiled down to groceries and laundry. And the lies, they were subtle, slippery things. He'd tell me he was working late, but then I'd notice his shirt smelled faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. He'd claim exhaustion, but his eyes held a glimmer, like he was energized by something or someone else. The emotional strain was unbearable. I found myself second-guessing everything: the dinners I cooked, the conversations we had, even the clothes I wore. Was I boring? Had I stopped being enough? Every sigh, every dismissive wave of his hand chipped away at my confidence. Yet, at the same time, a quiet awareness grew. I couldn't ignore the way he seemed to live in two worlds, one with me, dull and dutiful, and another I couldn't see, filled with secret smiles and whispered calls. One night, lying beside him, I pretended to sleep while he typed furiously on his phone. The glow of the screen lit his face, and I swear I saw him smile, an unguarded, boyish grin I hadn't seen in years. But it wasn't for me. I shut my eyes tight, my heart splintering. That smile told me everything I needed to know. He was already gone, long before he confessed it. High voltage, I didn't know it then, but those little cracks would become the openings I'd one day used to tear his entire world apart. The truth didn't come in whispers. It hit me like a freight train. One rainy evening, while Jason was in the shower, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally, I would have ignored it. But something inside me, years of suspicion, of ignored instincts, forced my hand. I picked it up. The message was from her. "I can't believe you finally told her. I can't wait to start our life together. Just us, no more secrets. Friday can't come soon enough." My stomach dropped. My pulse thundered in my ears. I scrolled up, my fingers trembling. Dozens of messages filled the screen. Photos of them on trips I thought were business, declarations of love, plans for vacations, even jokes about me. "She's so clueless," Jason had written. "She still thinks I'm working late." But the knife twisted deeper when I found the financial texts. Transfers, wire confirmations, even an account screenshot. He hadn't just left me for her, he was moving our money into a new account, one only their names would touch. My savings, my share of our life together, the years of sacrifice, I had been erased, replaced, and robbed in one swift move. My knees buckled. I sank onto the edge of the bed, clutching the phone like it might burn me. 10 years. 10 years of loyalty, of love, of building something side by side, and he had dismantled it behind my back, piece by piece. The Jason who once swore to protect me had become the very person destroying me. The shower turned off. I barely had time to put the phone back before he stepped out, towel around his waist, humming like nothing was wrong. He smiled at me, oblivious, and kissed my forehead. The same lips that had been on her hours earlier. I forced a smile, but inside, I was burning. The heartbreak was unbearable, yes. But beneath it, something sharper stirred. Rage. A cold, steady fire. He thought he had won, that he could leave me shattered and humiliated while he built a shiny new life with her. But Jason had underestimated me. He always had. I spent that night awake, staring at the ceiling, my chest tight with grief and fury. My mind ran in circles, images of their texts, their laughter, his betrayal. Every "I love you" he whispered to me now sounded like poison. Every memory turned sour. By dawn, my tears were gone. I felt hollow, stripped bare. But in that hollow space, something new grew, a resolve as sharp as glass. He had left me for her. He had taken my money, my love, my trust. High voltage, but what he didn't realize was that by doing so, he'd given me something even more powerful, a reason to take his entire world apart. Grief has a strange rhythm. At first, it's a flood, uncontrollable, suffocating, endless. But when the floodwaters finally recede, they leave something behind. Devastation, yes, but also clarity. The morning after I discovered Jason's betrayal, I stared at myself in the mirror. My eyes were swollen from crying, my lips chapped from biting back sobs, but something about my reflection was different. For the first time in years, I didn't see the woman Jason defined his supportive wife, his background character. I saw me. And I realized something that stopped me cold. Jason hadn't just left me. He hadn't just stolen my money. He had gambled on the belief that I was weak, that I would crumble in silence while he rebuilt his world with her. He thought I'd simply fade away, like a footnote in his story. That was his mistake. I pulled open the drawer of my nightstand and found the wedding photo I had tucked away years ago. Jason, smiling with perfect charm, me, clinging to him, believing the world was ours. I held the frame tight, and for a moment, the pain nearly broke me again. But then, slowly, I felt something shift. My tears dried. My jaw set. And as I stared at that frozen image of the man who had destroyed me, I whispered, "You took everything from me. Now I'll take everything from you." The trigger was small, almost trivial, but it sealed my resolve. Later that day, I caught Jason laughing on the phone in the driveway, his hand cupped around his mouth like he was sharing the world's best secret. He saw me through the window and quickly turned his back, voice dropping to a whisper. It wasn't just betrayal anymore, it was mockery. He was already living his new life in plain sight, like I didn't exist. And that was when my heartbreak crystallized into determination. I stopped replaying the betrayal in my head and started thinking in plans. I thought about what Jason valued most: his reputation, his career, his carefully curated image of success, his money. He had spent years building this perfect world brick by brick. I had been there for every piece of it, which meant I knew exactly where to strike. He thought I was powerless, but I wasn't. I had the receipts. I had the access. And most importantly, I had nothing left to lose. As I tucked the photo back into the drawer, I smiled for the first time since everything fell apart. Not the smile of a broken woman, but of someone who had found her weapon. High-voltage Jason had left me for her, but he had no idea he had just created the version of me capable of taking his entire world. Revenge isn't a thunderclap. It's a patient, surgical thing, quiet work done in the hours when the world thinks you're still broken. I treated it like a job. Gather facts, build a case, create pressure where he least expected it. Step 1. Proof. I started where every liar leaves fingerprints, his devices. While he bragged at brunch about closing deals, I rifled through his desk drawer until I found the backup hard drive he thought I'd never know about. It took long nights and cold coffee, but I copied every transaction, every emailed confirmation, every itinerary that matched the cheating photos. I printed bank transfers, screenshot texts, and catalog dates. Each piece went into a folder I labeled everything. Step 2. Allies. I reached out to people who didn't wear his charm like armor. An old friend of mine who worked in compliance agreed to look at the company's public filings. A former client I'd quietly befriended at charity events promised to listen if I needed someone to corroborate odd behavior. Most importantly, I found a small, fierce lawyer who didn't buy sob stories, she bought evidence. We talked strategy, not drama, subpoenas, audits, and how to make his next moves visible in a way that would ruin him. Step 3. Leverage. Jason's world lived on perception, investors, colleagues, the board that fed his ego. If I wanted him exposed, I needed a reason for those people to dig. So we filed an anonymous, but formal request for a routine audit. It was the perfect pry, legal, boring on paper, devastating when it unearthed discrepancies. We also seeded a whispered rumor, carefully, through a disgruntled-sounding email account. Something's off with Donovan and Company's books. The rumor was enough to plant a worried look on the right faces. Step 4. The trap. He loved public validation, awards nights, client dinners, the kind of nights he wore his success like a tuxedo. I arranged a casual celebration at our home, invited a handful of board members and a journalist I'd quietly befriended. Jason arrived radiant, convinced he was still untouchable. I let him preen. Let him thank everyone while I sat with a calm mask on. All the while, he still acted like the victor. He posted photos with Samantha sipping wine, clasping hands, the kind of staged happiness people paid to watch. He bought new watches, bragged about deals, joked about his fresh start. His confidence made me careful. The bolder he was, the more thorough I had to be. There was a tense moment when his phone buzzed during the party and he stepped outside. I watched him through the window, smiling with the woman who thought she'd replaced me, and in that smile I felt the full weight of what I'd stolen from. My throat tightened, but my hands were steady. Before the night ended, the lawyer quietly confirmed the audit had been accepted. The trap was set. He still believed himself in control. He had no idea an invisible audience was about to be shown every secret he'd been so careful to hide. High voltage. As the guests left and the house settled, I sat alone with the folder labeled everything. The satisfaction was sharp and clean until I found, tucked between two emails, a calendar entry in his handwriting: Friday, finalized transfer. The night of the celebration felt like walking into a movie set. One scene before the reveal: lights soft, laughter polished, Jason preening in his tux like a man who'd already won. He didn't notice the way the journalist I'd quietly fed questions to hovered near the canopy table. He didn't notice Mara's steady gaze when she took his hand to congratulate him. He didn't notice my calm. I let him take the floor. He gave the speech he loved, humble brags about grit, loyalty, and integrity. Cameras zoomed. His smile was on 1,000 tiny screens. Then I tapped my wine glass. The room fell to polite silence. Before we toast, I said, voice soft enough to sound like a wife's small interruption, there's something some of you should see. Mara stood and set the stack of printouts on the buffet: bank transfers with dates, screenshots of texts, invoices disguised as consulting fees. The journalist lifted his phone to film. I watched as the words on paper landed like stones. Faces that had been warm a moment before turned white. Jason's laugh faltered. He reached for explanations, bookkeeping errors, mislabeled expenses, but Mara read faster, the evidence a metronome that wouldn't pause for charm. This shows intent, she said plainly. Repeated transfers from your joint account to a company you control. This isn't bookkeeping. This is theft. Someone started a live stream. The board member who'd been standing beside him glanced at his phone, then at Jason, then slid away to whisper into a call. An investor excused himself without returning. The woman at his side, Samantha, looked from paper to man to camera and then, with a tiny, horrified inhale, understood the implication. Cameras pounced. Phones pinged. In 10 minutes, the room's applause turned into a soundtrack of murmurs and the click-click of people backing away. Jason, once the center of attention, found the attention burning. He lunged toward his phone, tried to delete the physical proof, but the lawyer had already secured his devices. That evening unfolded like a public execution. Headlines were written in real time: local exec accused of embezzlement, affair, theft, and a public fall. The firm's compliance team, prompted by the audit we'd set in motion, began placing holds on accounts. Contracts were suspended. His board scheduled an emergency meeting for the following morning. The stock tickers and investor forums had already started their own private tribunals. Worst of all for him, the intimate betrayal. Samantha's messages, once hidden, went public. Her texts called him out, then asked for explanations, then, mercilessly, asked for receipts. She had left her own breadcrumbs. The woman who had stepped into our life with a smile suddenly looked like someone who'd been played as badly as he had. By dawn, Jason's world had imploded. He stood in the foyer of the house he'd once called ours, phone in hand, stripped of allies, his name a curse on feeds and in private group chats. People who'd toasted him the night before now avoided his gaze. I watched him from the glass of the living room doors, feeling a cold satisfaction. He had everything worth losing, and he had lost it. But as the sun rose, my lawyer's assistant handed me a single printout pulled from a tucked calendar entry, an incomplete wire, scheduled, but not yet executed, the kind of thing that could have been his escape. My thumb traced the line, finalized transfer Friday. For a second, the victory tasted thin. The ember of unease flared. Had I cut the last rope, or had another still been burning somewhere unseen? The morning after Jason's downfall, the house felt eerily quiet. For years, silence had meant loneliness, the void between us when he worked late or whispered to her on the phone. But now, silence meant freedom. Jason's empire collapsed in less than a week. The board removed him, his accounts were frozen pending investigation, and the audit uncovered enough evidence to keep lawyers circling for years. His reputation, once his greatest weapon, was in ashes. No glossy interview, no staged photo with Samantha could save him. In fact, Samantha vanished the moment the money dried up. She blocked his number, deleted their pictures, and left him to drown in the scandal they had built together. I didn't rejoice in her leaving. It wasn't about her. This was always about him. The man who thought he could strip me of everything and walk away with a smug smile had lost not only his fortune, but also the very people he thought would worship him forever. As for me, the narrative shifted overnight. For years, I'd been Jason's wife, the quiet shadow to his bright spotlight. But when the evidence came out, when people saw how long I'd endured his lies, they stopped calling me weak. Words like resilient, clever, and fearless started appearing in headlines. Invitations poured in from networks who wanted to hear my side. I turned most of them down. I wasn't looking for fame. What I wanted was peace. I found it in small things, sleeping through the night without dread, reclaiming my own bank account, even painting the living room walls a color Jason once said was too dark. I liked it dark. It felt like closure. And yet, there was a moment, late one night, when I drove past the hotel where Jason was staying. Through the window of the lobby, I saw him hunched over a stack of papers, eyes hollow, suit wrinkled, no phone ringing, no allies left. For the first time, I realized he wasn't a monster anymore. He was just a man who believed himself untouchable until the ground gave way. I didn't pity him. Not even then. Because the truth is this. He left me for her, but in the end, she left him. And I took not just his money, not just his reputation, I took the one thing he could never rebuild, his world. High-voltage poetic justice isn't about revenge for the sake of pain. It's about balance. He broke me, and in the breaking, he created the version of me strong enough to break him back. Now, let me ask you, have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted most? Did you stay silent, or did you fight back? Tell me your story in the comments. I read them all. And if you want more tales of betrayal, justice, and strength, subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just taking back what's yours, it's taking their entire world.